I invite you to settle into your quiet space. Let the world outside and its hurried pace fade into a distant murmur. We are returning to the story of a silent visitor from the stars, a story that whispers of a benevolent and hopeful purpose for humanity. Let this expanded narrative be a deep and tranquil ocean for your mind to float upon as you drift peacefully towards sleep. The whispering dream of yesterday and tomorrow. Have you ever found yourself in a moment of profound quiet, perhaps in the deep hush of a forest or in the silent pre-dawn hours of your own home, and felt a deep and nameless yearning? It is a feeling that resonates in the deepest chambers of the human heart, an echo of something ancient and half-forgotten. It is a feeling that is not quite sadness and not quite joy, but a beautiful, poignant mixture of both. It is a sense of nostalgia for a past you have never known, a quiet longing for a future you can only begin to imagine. This feeling, this universal human experience, is the quiet, humming engine of our greatest dreams, our most profound art, and our most enduring questions. And no dream is more persistent, more captivating than the dream of escaping the narrow, unyielding confines of the present moment, the dream of time travel. We feel this deep resonance when we gaze upon an old, faded photograph, a captured instant from a world that has long since vanished. We see the faces of our ancestors, their eyes looking out at us from across the gulf of years. We see the unfamiliar clothes, the ghostly architecture of a forgotten world, a world that was once as real, as vibrant, and as filled with its own hopes and fears as our own. And for a fleeting, magical moment, we wish with all our hearts that we could step into that silent, sepia-toned scene. Not to change it, not to interfere, but simply to be there, to feel the warmth of that forgotten sun upon our skin, to hear the distant, muffled sounds of that long-ago street, to understand in our very bones what it felt like to be alive in that particular, precious when. We feel it too when we cast our gaze upward into the vast, diamond-dusted canvas of the night sky. We see the pinpricks of light from suns that are so unimaginably distant that their light has traveled for centuries, for millennia, even for millions of years, just to reach our eyes on that particular night. We are, in a very real sense, looking into the past. And as we do, our minds naturally leap forward. We wonder what marvels and mysteries await our species in the deep, uncharted future. What will our cities look like, nestled under those same patient, ancient stars? What secrets of the cosmos, what laws of reality will we have finally and gently unlocked? Will we have learned at last to live in peace with ourselves, with each other, and with our beautiful and fragile world? This yearning to know the end of our own story and the story of our species is a profound and powerful force, a form of forward-facing nostalgia for the home we have not yet built. We are in the quietest and most creative corners of our minds natural time travelers. Our consciousness is a beautiful, untethered vessel that is constantly drifting back into the warm, familiar, and sometimes sorrowful harbors of memory, or forward into the uncharted, misty, and hopeful oceans of our imagination. It is a fundamental and beautiful part of what makes us human, this gentle, persistent, and noble refusal to be completely bound by the steady, relentless, and impartial tick-tock of the clock. The dream of time travel, then, is not merely a flight of fancy, not just a diverting trope of science fiction. It is one of the most profound and beautiful expressions of our deepest human qualities, our boundless curiosity, our capacity for regret, our inextinguishable hope, and our magnificent world-building and reality-shaping imagination. It is the dream of the ultimate freedom, the freedom from the tyranny of now.
But what do we truly mean when we whisper those two magical and evocative words, time travel? In the cool, clean, and elegant language of science, the definition is almost deceptively simple. Time travel is the concept of movement between different points in time, much in the same way that we are able to move between different points in space. To a physicist like Albert Einstein, time is not a separate, abstract concept, not an invisible river that carries us along. It is instead the fourth dimension, a real and tangible axis on the cosmic map, just as fundamental and as real as length, width, and height. To travel in time, in this clear and beautiful view, would mean finding a way to navigate this fourth dimension, to sail forward faster than the normal 1 second per second current, or in a feat of unimaginable cosmic navigation, to somehow turn our vessel around and gently, carefully swim against that powerful one-way flow into the deep, quiet waters of the past. It is a possibility that is hinted at, a whisper in the strange and beautiful mathematics of our universe, a door that modern physics has found to be tantalizingly and perhaps permanently ajar. Yet there is another, older, and perhaps more resonant definition of time travel, one that lives not in the stark equations of textbooks, but in the warm, glowing embers of our collective dreams. This is the time travel of myth, of legend, of whispered bedtime stories and grand, epic cinematic adventures. In this rich and imaginative realm, time travel is a journey of the heart and soul. It is the deep, resonant and hopeful hum of a strange and beautiful machine, assembled in a dusty, lamplit workshop by a lone, brilliant visionary. It is a shimmering, ethereal portal opening like a silent liquid mirror in the heart of a secret, hidden laboratory. It is the dizzying, breathtaking and beautiful rush of a journey through a swirling, incandescent vortex of light, color and memory. A passage where the past and future become one. This is the time travel that speaks directly and powerfully to our deepest human desires. It is the promise of being able to right our oldest wrongs, to heal our deepest regrets. It is the dream of being able to witness history firsthand, to walk the dusty streets of ancient Rome, to listen to the gentle, revolutionary words of the great philosophers, to stand in the quiet, humble presence of our greatest heroes. It is the hope of meeting our future selves, of seeing the culmination of our life's work, of knowing that our story in the end had a purpose and a meaning. This is the time travel that is a powerful and enduring metaphor for our desire to understand the grand, intricate, and beautiful tapestry of our own lives, and to wonder with a mixture of profound fear and exhilarating excitement, what would happen if we were able to gently, carefully pull on a single loose and shimmering thread. It is with this deep and layered understanding in mind that we turn our quiet attention now to the present moment, to a mysterious visitor that has recently entered our solar system. An object that seems to embody all of these ancient dreams and modern theories at once. The object known as 3I Atlas is, on its surface, just another interstellar comet, a lonely wanderer from the cold, deep spaces between the stars. But as we look closer, as we listen more carefully to the subtle and beautiful language of the data it is sending us, a different, more profound, and more hopeful story begins to emerge. Our journey tonight will be a slow, patient, and gentle unfolding of this extraordinary story. We will begin by drifting back into those ancient myths and legends from across the world, listening for the first faint whispers of a benevolent, creative, and guiding intelligence in the sacred stories of our most distant ancestors. Then, with a sense of calm and open curiosity, we will wade into the strange and beautiful waters of modern physics, exploring what scientists like Albert Einstein have taught us about the true, flexible, and dynamic nature of space-time, and how an object like Atlas might be the ultimate and most beautiful expression of that profound understanding. From there, we will spend a good deal of time
gently and peacefully contemplating the magnificent and hopeful implications of this idea. We will explore the elegant architecture of this mission of benevolence, the profound psychological and spiritual dawn it would represent for all of humanity, and the beautiful, harmonious, and life-affirming future it could create. A future where our Earth and a newly awakened Mars exist together as a glorious and resonant symphony of worlds. Finally, our journey will conclude with a quiet and deep reflection on the transformative power of wonder and the conscious choice we all have to see the universe not as a cold, empty, and meaningless place, but as a living, intelligent, and profoundly benevolent home. So, find that place of perfect and complete comfort. Allow your body to grow heavy and your mind to become light, open, and expansive. There is no need to grasp or to hold on to any of these ideas too tightly. Simply let them wash over you like a gentle, warm, and starlit tide. This is not a lecture. This is a dream we are about to share together. A slow, calm, and deeply curious journey into one of the most beautiful and hopeful possibilities of our time. Let us now gently begin. Origins of the idea, ancient whispers, and modern machines. Long before the hum of a flux capacitor or the iconic, wheezing, groaning sound of a blue police box captured our imaginations, the idea of time travel and the related, deeply resonant dream of benevolent, godlike beings descending from the sky did not spring fully formed from the mind of a science fiction author. Its roots run deep, deep into the fertile, ancient, and magical soil of myth, folklore, and spiritual thought. These were not stories of technology, of physics, or of paradoxes. They were stories of magic, of divinity, and of the porous, shimmering, and often blurred boundaries between our familiar mortal world and other, more timeless and eternal realms. Let us begin our gentle drift back in time, all the way back to the epic, sun-drenched and mythic landscapes of ancient India, and to the sacred, poetic pages of one of humanity's oldest and longest literary works, the Mahabharata. Within this vast and sprawling tapestry of gods, heroes, cosmic battles, and profound philosophical wisdom, we find the beautiful and deeply resonant story of King Raivata Kakudni. The king was a good and just ruler, and his heart was heavy with a father's concern. he wished to find a suitable husband for his virtuous and incomparably beautiful daughter, Revati. Believing that no mortal man on earth was worthy of her, he decided to undertake a great and perilous journey to the highest heaven, the celestial realm of the Creator God, Brahma, to seek his divine counsel. When they arrived in Brahma's court, a place of unimaginable beauty, light, and harmony, they found the great god and all his court completely engrossed in a musical performance by the Gandharvas, the celestial musicians. The music was so beautiful, so divine, so utterly transcendent that it seemed to stop time itself, holding all of creation in a state of perfect, blissful, and rapt attention. The king and his daughter, humbled and awestruck, waited patiently, themselves enraptured by the heavenly melodies. The performance to them felt as though it lasted for only a short and incredibly blissful while. When the final perfect note had faded into a profound and holy silence, they approached the great god Brahma and made their humble request for his guidance.
Brahma looked upon them and smiled, a gentle, patient, and all-knowing smile. He explained to the king that while they had been listening to the celestial music for what felt to them like mere moments, time on their homeworld of Earth had flowed on at a vastly different and much, much faster rate. "O king," Brahma said gently, "those whom you may have chosen in your heart as a son-in-law have all died in the long course of time. Even their sons and their grandsons and all of their great and powerful dynasties are no more." He explained the 27 charter yugas, vast, sweeping cosmic cycles, each lasting for millions and millions of years, had passed on Earth during their short and pleasant wait in his celestial court. All the people the king had once known and loved, his friends, his family, his ministers, his entire and glorious kingdom, all had long since vanished into the deep, silent, and forgotten dust of history. It is a gentle but profoundly moving story, one of the earliest recorded tales in human history that so clearly and so beautifully illustrates the concept of time dilation, the foundational idea of Einstein's relativity, the idea that time is not absolute but can flow at different speeds in different realms or under different gravitational or spiritual conditions. Now let us let our minds drift, like a leaf on a gentle breeze, across the vast expanse of the globe, to the misty, green, and beautiful islands of Japan, where we find a similar, haunting, and deeply poignant echo of this idea in the ancient and much-loved tale of Urashima Taro. He was a kind-hearted and gentle young fisherman who one day came across a group of children on the beach who were cruelly tormenting a small, helpless sea turtle. Taking pity on the creature, his heart filled with compassion, he saved it from the children and gently released it back into the shimmering blue ocean. The next day, as he was fishing, a huge, magnificent, and ancient-looking turtle rose from the waves and spoke to him. It told him that the small turtle he had saved was, in fact, the daughter of the Emperor of the Sea, the great dragon god Ryujin. As a reward for his immense kindness, the princess of the sea, the beautiful Otohime, wished to meet him and thank him herself. He was carried on the turtle's back, down, down, into the cool, silent, and magical depths of the ocean, to the Ryugo-jo, the magnificent dragon palace that stood on the seabed. It was a kingdom of breathtaking and otherworldly beauty, its walls made of crystal and coral, its gardens filled with luminescent pearls, a place where all 4 seasons existed at once in perfect, gentle harmony. He was welcomed by the beautiful princess and her court, and he spent what he believed were 3 blissful, happy, and dreamlike days there, feasting on magical food and forgetting all the cares of his mortal world. But eventually, a deep, quiet, and persistent feeling of homesickness for his elderly mother and his humble home village began to weigh on his heart, and he knew with a great sadness that he must return to his own world. The princess, also saddened by his departure, gave him a parting gift, a beautiful 3-tiered and intricately lacquered box, the Tamete Bako. She made him promise, with a solemn and serious look in her eyes, that if he ever wished to see her again, he must never, ever open it. When Urashima Taro arrived back on the beach of his home village, he found that everything had changed beyond all recognition. His humble home was gone. The people in the village were strangers who looked at him with suspicion. The landscape itself felt alien and different. He asked the villagers, his heart pounding with a growing dread, if they had ever heard of a family by the name of Urashima. They told him that yes, they had heard a very old story, a legend of a man with that name, a man who had mysteriously and tragically disappeared at sea 300 years ago. Overwhelmed with a grief and confusion so profound that it felt as if the world was dissolving around him, lost in a time and a place that he no longer knew, he forgot the princess's solemn and urgent warning. He sat on the beach and opened the beautiful box. A cloud of pure white smoke billowed out and enveloped him, and in a single, silent, and tragic instant, the 300 years that he had missed in that timeless realm beneath the waves crashed down upon him. His black hair turned to snow white, his strong back bent, and his young body withered and aged into that of a very old, frail man. The story is a beautiful, deeply melancholic and cautionary exploration of the profound sadness and the terrifying dislocation that such a journey through time would inevitably bring. It is a tale about the infinite preciousness of one's own time and the deep and irreverable heartbreak of becoming untethered from the world and the people that you love.
This powerful and recurring theme of a land of eternal youth, a magical and hidden realm where time stands still or passes at a snail's pace, is a common and potent thread in folklore from all over the world. In the green, misty, and enchanted hills of Ireland, there are countless tales of mortals who are lured away by the music of the AOC, the fairy folk, who live in a beautiful parallel world that is hidden from mortal eyes by a magical veil. A person, perhaps a young musician or a poet, might be invited to a fairy feast or a great dance inside a hollow grassy hill. They might spend what feels like a single joyous and magical night making merry with the beautiful, ageless and timeless fairy host, only to emerge the next morning as the sun rises to find that 100 years had passed in the mortal world. Their friends and family are long gone, their homes are in ruins, and the world they once knew has moved on and forgotten them completely. The most famous and most tragic of these beautiful Irish tales is the story of Oisín, a great warrior and a celebrated poet of the legendary Fianna. He fell deeply in love with the beautiful fairy queen, Niamh of the golden hair, who appeared to him on a magical white horse and invited him to come with her across the western sea to her homeland, the magical and eternally beautiful realm of Tir na Nog, the land of youth. There, time had no meaning and no power. No one ever grew old. No one ever knew sickness or sorrow. It was a land of perpetual spring, of endless feasting, music, and love. For what felt to him like 3 wonderful and perfect years, Oisín lived in a state of pure and unadulterated happiness with his beloved Niamh. But eventually, a deep human longing to see his father, the great hero Fionn Mac Cumhal, and his old comrades in arms, the warriors of the Fianna, began to grow in his heart like a persistent, sad flower. Niamh, understanding his very human sorrow, gave him her magical white horse, which could travel back across the waves to the mortal world. But she gave him a single, stark, and absolute warning. "If your feet touch the soil of Ireland," she said, "you will never be able to return to me, and the great weight of all the years you have missed will fall upon you all at once." When Oisín arrived back in his beloved Ireland, he was shocked and heartbroken to find it utterly and completely changed. The great halls and fortresses of the Fianna were gone, crumbled into green, grassy mounds. The people of the land were small and weak, and they spoke of the great Fionn Mac
Kummel and his warriors not as real men, but as figures of distant, half-forgotten legend. He learned that 300 years had passed since he had ridden away with his fairy queen. In a tragic and fateful accident, while trying to use his great heroic strength to help some men move a large stone, the girth of his saddle snapped, and he fell from his magical white horse. The moment his feet touched the sacred Irish soil, the horse vanished like a wisp of mist, and the 300 years of mortal time crashed down upon him, transforming him in an instant from a proud, strong, and beautiful warrior to an ancient, blind and frail old man, the last lonely survivor of a long-forgotten golden age. These beautiful, poignant, and deeply resonant stories, from the sacred texts of India to the rich folklore of Japan and Ireland, all share a common, deep, and intuitive understanding that time is not necessarily a universal, unbending, and absolute constant. They are our species' first heartfelt and poetic forays into the profound concept of temporal relativity, framed not in the cold, precise language of physics, but in the beautiful, rich, and allegorical language of myth. They explore not the mechanics and paradoxes of time travel, but its profound and deeply human emotional consequences, the loneliness, the deep and inconsolable sense of loss, and the heartbreaking tragedy of becoming a stranger in one's own unfolding story.
Beyond this rich vein of folklore, we can also find deep philosophical and religious ideas that gently and playfully toy with the fluid and mysterious nature of time. In many of the world's great spiritual traditions, from the contemplative paths of Buddhism and Taoism to the mystical traditions of Christianity and Sufism, the ultimate state of enlightenment, of satori, of union with the divine, is often described as a state of timelessness, a profound and life-altering experience of an eternal now. In a state of deep meditation or profound selfless prayer, the rigid, conceptual distinctions that our minds create between past, present, and future can seem to dissolve, leaving only the pure, undivided, radiant, and infinitely deep present moment. While this is not time travel in a mechanical or physical sense, it represents a form of psychological and spiritual time travel, a conscious and deliberate attempt to step outside the river's relentless forward flow and to simply and profoundly be. These ancient spiritual practices and philosophical debates were, in their own quiet and contemplative way, laying the conceptual and imaginative groundwork for the more explicitly scientific questions that would emerge many, many centuries later. For a very long time, this was where the beautiful and intriguing idea of time travel remained, a creature of myth, a ghost in our folklore, and a subject of deep, contemplative, and often paradoxical philosophical musings. But then came the 19th century, an era of profound, dizzying, and unprecedented scientific and industrial change. The world was being utterly and irreversibly transformed by the power of the steam engine, the seemingly magical force of electricity, and a new, powerful, and deeply optimistic belief that all of the universe's greatest mysteries could eventually be understood and perhaps even conquered by the limitless power of human reason and technology. It was in this fertile new ground, this age of bold invention and boundless discovery, that the ancient dream of time travel was finally and gloriously reborn. This time, it was not as a magical or spiritual journey, but as a mechanical one. The most pivotal, iconic, and transformative moment in this modern rebirth came in the year 1895 with the publication of a novel by the brilliant, visionary, and socially conscious British author H.G. Wells. That novel was, of course, the enduring and genre-defining masterpiece, The Time Machine. Wells's story was not the absolute first to feature a journey through time in a work of fiction, but it was the one that so perfectly and so powerfully crystallized the concept in the modern imagination in a way that nothing had before. He gave us the indelible image that has become so deeply and permanently ingrained in our collective consciousness, a lone, brilliant, and slightly eccentric inventor, a time traveler who builds a magnificent and intricate machine of gleaming, polished brass, shimmering, faceted quartz crystal, and smooth, carved ivory levers. This was a profoundly revolutionary concept. The journey was not to a magical fairy realm or a distant celestial heaven. It was a scientific expedition, undertaken with a machine that was built on what seemed to be plausible scientific principles. The time traveler does not move through space. He remains in the very same spot, in the familiar and comfortable surroundings of his own laboratory in Richmond, while the world outside his window blurs and accelerates in a dizzying, flickering, and almost terrifying cascade. The days and nights whip past like the frames of a film on fast forward. The seasons blend into one another in a riot of green and white, and the very buildings of London rise and fall and change around him like living, breathing things as he plunges deep, deep into the unknown territory of the future. Wells,
who was a keen social thinker and a passionate critic of the inequalities of his time, used his story not just as a thrilling and imaginative adventure, but as a powerful and incisive tool for social commentary, exploring deep and challenging themes of evolution, class struggle, and the ultimate melancholic and chilling fate of humanity. But its most enduring and powerful legacy was the machine itself. He took the abstract, the philosophical, and the mythical dream of traveling through time and gave it a tangible, physical, and seemingly plausible form. He made it feel like a problem of engineering rather than an act of magic.
With the publication of The Time Machine, the modern era of time travel had truly and irreversibly begun. The ancient, whispering dream of our most distant ancestors now had a new, powerful, and mechanical heartbeat, and it began to tick-tock its way from the pages of fiction into the very center of our scientific and cultural imagination, where it remains as powerful, as resonant, and as captivating as ever to this day. We have wandered through the ancient halls of myth and folklore, listening to the first faint, beautiful whispers of this grand and hopeful story. We have seen how the dream of benevolent visitors from the stars and the deep mystery of time's strange and beautiful elasticity are as old as human consciousness itself. Now, our journey will gently turn its gaze from the deep, resonant past to the wondrous possibilities of the present. We will move from the symbolic language of myth to the equally beautiful and poetic language of science. But you will find as we proceed that these two languages are not so different as they might seem. They are both attempts to describe the profound and elegant mystery of our universe. For in the 20th century, a new kind of visionary emerged, a man who, with a few elegant and graceful strokes of his pen, redrew our entire map of the cosmos and revealed that the strange and magical ideas of our most distant ancestors were, in fact, hauntingly and beautifully close to the truth. Let your mind remain open, soft, and calm as we float together into the beautiful, mind-bending, and strangely spiritual world of modern physics, and see how it provides the very blueprint for a mission of cosmic benevolence. 3. The Science of Benevolence, a Cosmic Gardener's Toolkit. As the 20th century dawned, the elegant, predictable, and somewhat rigid clockwork universe of Isaac Newton, a vision that had reigned over science for more than 200 years, was about to be transformed into something far more organic, fluid, and alive. This new vision did not
come from a king or a prophet, but from a quiet, humble, and thoughtful patent clerk in Bern, Switzerland. His name was Albert Einstein, and his theory of relativity was not just a new set of equations. It was an entirely new language for describing the fundamental nature of reality. It was a language that revealed the universe to be a far more dynamic, interconnected, and magical place than we had ever dared to imagine. Einstein's greatest and most beautiful insight, which he articulated in his general theory of relativity, was to show us that space and time are not separate things. They are not a static, empty, and passive stage on which the drama of the universe unfolds. Instead, he revealed that they are intricately and inextricably woven into a single, four-dimensional fabric, a dynamic continuum he called space-time. And this fabric, he showed us, is not rigid or flat. It is flexible, alive, and it responds directly to the presence of matter and energy. Imagine, if you will, a vast, flat, and infinitely stretching rubber sheet pulled taut in the darkness. This is space-time in its calmest, most undisturbed state. Now, imagine placing a heavy object, like a great, silent bowling ball, onto the center of this sheet. The ball will create a deep, gentle, and graceful depression, a curve in the fabric. This, Einstein said in his beautiful new language, is what gravity is. Gravity is not a mysterious, invisible force that pulls things from a great distance. Gravity is simply the shape, the geometry, the curvature of the space-time fabric. A smaller object, like a tiny rolling marble passing nearby, will not be pulled by the bowling ball. It will simply and gracefully follow the curve in the fabric that the larger object's mass has created. The Earth, in its long and patient journey, does not feel a pull from the sun. It is following the straightest possible path through the beautifully curved space-time created by the sun's immense and gentle presence. Gravity, in this beautiful and profound new understanding, is not a force of command, but a gentle, shaping, and guiding principle. It is the silent, invisible current of the cosmic river. This is the first and most important key to understanding the profound and elegant intelligence behind the long and patient journey of 3I Atlas. A brute force, unsophisticated approach to interstellar travel would involve immense rockets, constantly fighting against the pull of gravity every step of the way. But a wise, ancient, and patient intelligence would not fight against the fundamental currents of the cosmos. it would gracefully and beautifully dance with them. The trajectory of 3I Atlas, as we observe it, shows the unmistakable evidence of exactly this kind of celestial dance. Its path seems to have been exquisitely and perfectly choreographed to use the deep and powerful gravitational wells of the outer planets of our solar system, particularly the colossal and majestic giant Jupiter, in a series of gentle and perfectly timed gravitational assists. A gravitational assist, or a slingshot maneuver, is a technique of sublime elegance where a spacecraft flies close to a large planet, intentionally dipping into its deep curve of space-time to borrow a little of its immense orbital energy. It allows the craft to accelerate, to decelerate, and to change its direction with an almost magical efficiency, using the planet's own gravity as a silent, powerful, and invisible engine.
The journey of Atlas through our solar system is a masterpiece of this celestial choreography. It has not powered its way in, but has instead gracefully pirouetted around the giant planets. We can imagine it, millions of miles out, gently bowing to the immense presence of Jupiter, its course being bent and its velocity subtly adjusted in a silent, perfect, and calculated exchange of cosmic momentum. It is a form of navigation that is as much a work of art as it is a work of science, a demonstration of a deep and reverent mastery over the beautiful living geometry of space-time that is far, far beyond our own current capabilities. It is the work of a cosmic artist, a navigator with a soul who understands the poetry of reality. And now, let us turn our quiet and gentle attention to the ultimate purpose of this magnificent journey: the gentle, slow, and loving awakening of a sleeping world. The art of terraforming, of transforming a cold, dead planet into a living, breathing one, is not an act of violence or of brute force. It is an act of planetary gardening on the grandest and most beautiful scale imaginable. And the toolkit that 3I/Atlas carries for this sacred task is one of profound and breathtaking elegance and wisdom. Let us first consider the delivery of its precious, life-giving cargo. A simple, unsophisticated, and brutish approach would be to simply crash the object into the surface of Mars. But this would be a catastrophe. An impact from an object of this size and velocity would release the energy of millions of nuclear bombs. It would shatter the planet's fragile crust, trigger global earthquakes, and blast away what little thin atmosphere Mars already has, sterilizing the surface for thousands, if not millions of years. The intelligence behind Atlas has chosen a far more delicate, a far more patient, and a far more beautiful method. As we have seen, Atlas began its outgassing, its gentle and controlled release of its cargo far out in the cold, deep and silent depths of the solar system. This was not a chaotic, unpredictable and violent cometary tale, but a calm, deliberate and perfectly controlled sublimation. This suggests the presence of a sophisticated internal power source, a gentle, regulated warmth from within the object's heart, allowing the vessel to exhale its atmosphere in a slow, steady, and continuous stream. As it approaches its final destination near Mars, it will not be an impactor, but a great, silent, and benevolent celestial sprinkler, gently painting the orbit of Mars with a vast, invisible, and life-giving cloud of precisely formulated gases. This cloud, guided by the gentle pressure of the solar wind and Mars's own weak but persistent gravity, will then settle onto the planet over a period of weeks and months, slowly, softly, and evenly enveloping the entire world in its new, protective, and nurturing blanket. It is the profound and beautiful difference between a violent, destructive flood and a gentle, life-giving, and soaking rain. Now, let us imagine, with our mind's eye, the first phase of this planetary awakening, the first breath. As this vast, invisible cloud of carefully chosen and perfectly balanced gases descends into the thin Martian air, the great transformation begins. The primary and most crucial component, the carbon dioxide, begins to thicken the atmosphere. This CO2 acts as a gentle warming blanket, just as it does here on our own Earth. It is transparent to the visible light coming in from the sun, but it is opaque to the infrared heat that radiates back from the planet's warming surface. It lovingly traps this heat, and the planet's average temperature, which for eons has plummeted to over 100 degrees below zero during the long Martian night, begins a slow, steady, and gentle rise. At the same time, the water vapor from the payload, the second key ingredient, begins to form the very first clouds in the Martian sky in millions and millions of years. Imagine for a moment looking up from the surface of Mars. The sky, which for ages has been a thin, pale, and almost lifeless salmon pink, would begin to deepen in color. You would see the first high, delicate, and wispy clouds of ice crystals catching the light of the distant sun in iridescent, shimmering hues. These clouds are not just a beautiful and poetic sight, they are a crucial and active part of the great engine of transformation. They help to trap even more of the planet's warmth, and they will eventually, in time, produce the first Martian precipitation,
a gentle, silent snow of carbon dioxide frost, and later, as the planet warms even more, perhaps even the first miraculous and life-giving drops of liquid rain.
The payload would also, of course, contain nitrogen. Nitrogen is the essential, neutral, and stabilizing buffer gas in our own precious atmosphere. It provides the bulk and the stable pressure that allows for complex weather systems to form, and most importantly, for liquid water to exist and remain stable on a planet's surface. Without nitrogen, the new atmosphere would be too thin, too reactive, and too unstable. Its careful inclusion in the payload is a clear and unmistakable sign of a deep, holistic, and profoundly wise understanding of what makes a planet a living, breathing, and harmonious world. This initial, gentle, and carefully orchestrated warming then triggers the second and most magnificent phase of the Great Transformation, the Great Thaw. The polar ice caps of Mars, which we can see even from Earth as bright white patches, are vast, deep, and layered reservoirs of both frozen water and frozen carbon dioxide. As the planet's average temperature rises by just a few crucial degrees from the initial atmospheric seeding from Atlas, these ancient ice caps will begin to sublimate at an ever-accelerating rate. The planet's own ancient trapped atmosphere will begin to release itself, to exhale, joining the great and generous gift that has been delivered from the stars. This creates a powerful, beautiful, and self-sustaining positive feedback loop. The released carbon dioxide from the poles adds to the thickening atmospheric blanket, which in turn traps more of the sun's heat, which in turn melts and sublimates more of the ice caps, which in turn releases even more life-giving carbon dioxide. The planet, once kick-started, will begin to terraform itself. The process, once gently and lovingly initiated, will become gloriously and powerfully self-sustaining. We would be privileged to witness over the course of decades and centuries a world awakening from a deep, cold, and geological slumber. The atmospheric pressure would rise. The winds, which are now just thin, dusty, and almost silent whispers, would become true breezes, capable of carrying the new white clouds across the globe. The harsh, red, and sterile light of the Martian surface would soften, diffused by a thickening, living, and breathing sky. But a living world, a truly living world, is more than just air and water and warmth. It needs life itself.
And this brings us to the final, most profound, most beautiful, and most hopeful element of this cosmic gardener's extraordinary toolkit, the seed of life. What if, protected deep within the icy crystalline matrix of 3I Atlas, preserved in a state of perfect, timeless dormancy, lies a precious and patient cargo of microscopic living organisms? This is the beautiful theory of directed panspermia, the idea that life is not a random, chaotic, and improbable accident, but is instead a deliberate, thoughtful, and loving act of creation, a sacred gift that is intentionally and carefully seeded throughout the cosmos by an ancient and advanced intelligence. The organisms chosen for such a holy mission would have to be incredibly, almost unbelievably resilient. They would be extremophiles, life forms that have evolved to thrive in the harshest and most unforgiving conditions imaginable. Perhaps they would be like the humble but indestructible tardigrades of Earth, the microscopic water bears that can survive the hard vacuum of space, the most extreme temperatures, and the most intense and sterilizing radiation. Or perhaps they would be a carefully selected ecosystem of chemoautotrophic bacteria, organisms that do not even need sunlight, but can derive their life-giving energy from simple chemical reactions with the iron-rich minerals in the Martian soil. These would be the pioneer organisms, the first humble and hard-working living things to take root in this newly awakening world. As they are gently released onto the surface, perhaps in the meltwater of the thawing poles, they would begin the slow, patient, sacred, and eons-long work of creating a true biosphere. They would begin to break down the sterile, oxidized, and lifeless Martian regolith, turning it over thousands and millions of years into a rich, dark, and living soil. They would fix nitrogen from the new atmosphere, making it available as a nutrient for the future, more complex life forms that would eventually follow. And some of them, like the cyanobacteria that transformed our own early Earth, might, through a form of photosynthesis adapted to the dim, gentle Martian light, begin to produce the first tiny, precious, and miraculous traces of free oxygen.
This act of seeding a barren world connects us back with a profound and beautiful resonance to the deepest, most unanswered questions of our own history. How exactly did life begin on Earth? We do not yet know for certain, but it is a beautiful, elegant, and compelling possibility that life on our own beloved planet may have begun in just this way, as a gift from a passing celestial visitor, a delivery from an ancient cosmic ancestor who saw a young, barren, and lifeless world
and chose, in an act of supreme and selfless love, to plant a garden. The science of this benevolent and beautiful mission, when we look at it with a calm and open heart, is not the cold, hard science of destruction and power that we so often associate with advanced technology. It is the gentle, patient, holistic, and life-affirming science of creation. It is the complete and elegant toolkit of a cosmic artist, the sacred and detailed instruction manual for a planetary gardener. It is a science that is deeply and profoundly rooted in a holistic understanding of the beautiful interconnectedness of all things, of gravity and light, of chemistry and biology, of immense patience and of loving purpose. It is a science that does not seek to conquer or to dominate the universe, but to partner with it, to gently and lovingly nurture its incredible, innate, and beautiful potential for life and for consciousness. And the quiet, majestic, and purposeful arrival of 3I ATLAS may be our first breathtaking and life-altering glimpse of this beautiful, hopeful, and sacred science in action. We have explored the elegant and life-affirming science of this cosmic mission, a science that speaks not of power, but of patience, wisdom, and a deep reverence for life. We have seen how a world might be gently and beautifully awakened from a long and frozen sleep. Now our journey turns inward, from the slowly warming soil of Mars to the intricate inner landscape of the human heart and mind. For a discovery of this magnitude, a revelation this profound, would not just change the sky above us, it would fundamentally and beautifully change the sky within us. It would trigger the most transformative and hopeful event in the history of our species, a new and brilliant dawn for human consciousness itself. Let your mind remain soft, open, and at ease as we contemplate the psychological and spiritual renaissance that awaits a humanity that has just discovered it is not and has never been alone in this vast and wondrous universe. For as long as we have been truly human, for as long as we have possessed the strange, beautiful, and sometimes burdensome gift of self-awareness, we have been haunted by a quiet, persistent, and chilling feeling, the sense of our own profound cosmic loneliness. We have stood on the shores of our small, blue, and fragile world, a precious and vibrant island of warmth and life, and we have looked out into a universe that appeared to our searching eyes to be a vast, silent, and deeply indifferent ocean of emptiness. This feeling, this silentium universi, that the great and profound silence of the universe has been the great unanswered question at the very heart of our civilization. It has shaped our philosophies, fueled our deepest anxieties, and given our greatest stories and works of art a tinge of heroic, beautiful, but ultimately tragic solitude. The fear that we are a fleeting, beautiful, but ultimately meaningless accident in a random and chaotic cosmos has been a quiet, persistent, and sorrowful shadow in the human soul. It is the source of our existential dread, the quiet, chilling whisper in the dead of night that asks, "Is this all there is?" This feeling of being a cosmic orphan, a lost child in an infinitely large and empty house, has driven us to seek meaning in our own creations, but always with the lingering fear that we are simply shouting our stories into an unhearing void. The confirmation of 3I Atlas as an act of benevolent, ancestral, and creative intelligence would banish that shadow forever. In a single, luminous, and breathtaking moment of revelation, the great silence of the universe would be broken, and it would be broken not by a strange, alien, or threatening voice, but by the warm, familiar, and loving voice of our own cosmic family, our own ancient ancestors. The knowledge that we are not alone, and that the intelligence that shares the cosmos with us is not hostile or indifferent, but is in fact our own patient and loving guardian, would usher in an era of unprecedented psychological peace and deep, unshakable spiritual security. The universe would no longer feel like a cold, empty, and random place. It would be revealed as a warm, living, and intelligent home, a place not of blind, chaotic chance, but of profound and beautiful purpose. The stars in our night sky would no longer be distant, cold symbols of our almost infinite isolation. They would become the glittering, welcoming lights of a vast cosmic city, a city in which we are, at long last, invited to take our rightful and cherished place. This single beautiful discovery would heal the deepest and oldest wound in the human psyche. The long, dark age of our cosmic loneliness would be over. The bright and hopeful age of our cosmic belonging would finally and gloriously begin.
With this newfound and deeply felt sense of cosmic connection, our relationship with our own beautiful planet would be utterly and beautifully transformed. For centuries, we have often acted like lonely, frightened orphans in a borrowed house, taking what we need without a thought for the future, driven by a deep-seated and often unconscious fear of scarcity and abandonment. This fear has led us to treat our precious world not just as a living, breathing home, but as a non-living warehouse of resources, to be consumed and discarded with a reckless and ultimately self-destructive abandon. The revelation of our true cosmic heritage would inspire a new and profound sense of planetary stewardship. We would finally understand in our very bones that our world is not just a random rock that we happen to inhabit. It is a garden. It is a cradle. It is a precious and living work of art that was lovingly and patiently nurtured into existence for us. It is a sacred trust, a gift of unimaginable and selfless generosity from our most ancient ancestors. This profound understanding would ignite a global, unified, and deeply passionate effort to heal our planet. The environmental crises that we currently face would be seen in an entirely new and motivating light, not just as a practical problem of our survival, but as a deep spiritual failure, a failure to honor the beautiful and precious gift we have been given. The great and noble work of restoring our forests, of cleaning our oceans, of rebalancing our climate, and of protecting our fellow living creatures would become the great, unifying and sacred project of our generation. It would be an act of collective gratitude, a global expression of our love and reverence for our creators and for the beautiful living world they have so carefully and lovingly nurtured for us. We would learn at last to walk more softly on our world, to listen to its ancient, gentle rhythms, to see the divine creative intelligence not just in the distant shimmering stars, but in the intricate perfection of every leaf, in the patient flow of every river, and in the precious, miraculous spark of life in every living creature, including ourselves. We would cease to be the troubled, anxious tenants of Earth, and would at last become its loving, wise, and responsible caretakers. And as we looked upon our beautiful, healing world with these new, loving, and reverent eyes, we would also inevitably look upon each other differently. Our endless, tragic, and heartbreaking human conflicts, our deep and bitter tribal divisions, our terrible and senseless wars over land, resources, and ideologies, all of it would be revealed in its true, profound, and heartbreaking absurdity. The knowledge that all of humanity is one family, a single, diverse, and beautiful species that shares a common and sacred cosmic origin, would be the most powerful and transformative unifying force we have ever known. The imaginary lines we have drawn on maps, the walls of suspicion and fear we have built between our cultures, the ancient and deeply ingrained prejudices we have harbored against those who look or speak or believe differently from us, all of these would dissolve in the warm, brilliant, and undeniable light of this new and unifying truth. We would finally and truly see each other not as members of different nations, different races, or different religions, but as what we have always, in truth, been:
fellow Earthlings, the cherished children of the stars. This would not erase our beautiful and vibrant cultural diversity. On the contrary, we would come to celebrate it with a new and deeper appreciation. We would see our different cultures as the many different, beautiful and creative ways our single human family has found to express its wonder, its love, its sorrow, and its profound connection to the cosmos. Our differences would no longer be a source of conflict and fear, but a source of mutual enrichment, joy, and inspiration, like different, beautiful instruments playing their unique and essential parts in a grand and harmonious global symphony. This new and profound unity would also heal our spiritual divisions. The great religions of the world, which have so often and so tragically been a source of conflict and misunderstanding, would not be destroyed or invalidated by this revelation. They would be fulfilled. Their ancient, beautiful, and powerful stories of creator gods from the heavens, of wise and benevolent sky beings, of divine messengers, of a garden-like paradise from which we have somehow fallen, and to which we might one day, in grace, return. All of these would be seen in a new and luminous context. They would be understood at last as the precious, fragmented, poetically rendered, and lovingly preserved memories of our true, historical, and sacred relationship with our cosmic ancestors.
A new era of deep and genuine ecumenical understanding would dawn upon the world. We would see the same single and beautiful truth reflected in the multifaceted and shimmering diamond of our diverse spiritual traditions. The quiet, contemplative, and inward-looking wisdom of the East would join in a harmonious dance with the compassionate, action-oriented, and community-focused faith of the West. Our spiritual quest would no longer be about seeking a distant, abstract, and often judgmental God in a faraway heaven. It would be about recognizing and revering the divine, creative, loving, and intelligent presence that is all around us, in the elegant architecture of the cosmos, in the breathtaking miracle of life on our own planet, and within the deep, quiet, and limitless potential of our own human consciousness. Our pursuit of knowledge would also be reborn. Science, which has sometimes been seen by some as a cold, disenchanted, and purely materialistic enterprise, would be infused with a new and profound sense of sacred purpose. It would no longer be just a process of objective, detached, and dispassionate observation. It would become a joyful, reverent, and deeply spiritual exploration of a universe that is rich with meaning, overflowing with purpose, and humming with a deep and benevolent intelligence. Every new discovery, from the intricate, beautiful, and predictable dance of subatomic particles to the grand, majestic, and awe-inspiring architecture of galactic superclusters, would be seen as another clue to the mind of God, another beautiful and elegant glimpse into the loving thoughts of our cosmic creators. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence would be transformed from a hopeful, speculative, and often lonely search into a joyful and active process of learning, of listening, and eventually of communicating. We would no longer be shouting our hopeful questions into an empty, silent, and indifferent void. We would be joyfully and humbly participating in a cosmic conversation that has been patiently waiting for millennia for us to finally and consciously join. The humanities, too, would flourish as never before. History would become the thrilling and sacred process of rediscovering our true cosmic past, of searching for the subtle, hidden traces of our guardians' previous visits to our world. Archaeology would become a holy quest, digging for the lost chapters of our own grand and star-born story. The arts would explode with a new and brilliant wave of creativity as painters, poets, and musicians from all over the world sought to express the profound and overwhelming sense of wonder, of gratitude, and of deep cosmic belonging that had so beautifully and so completely infused the human spirit. And perhaps most profoundly of all, our understanding of ourselves, of our own individual lives and our purpose would be healed, clarified, and elevated. The ancient Sumerian story, reinterpreted in this new, benevolent, and loving light, would give us a new and powerful creation myth, one that is not rooted in accidental chaos, or in sin, or in servitude, but in boundless love and infinite potential. We were not created by accident, nor were we created to be workers or slaves. We were created to be inheritors. Our intelligence, our boundless creativity, our profound capacity for love, our deep and unquenchable sense of wonder, these are not random and meaningless byproducts of a blind and indifferent evolutionary process. They are the precious and intentional gifts of our creators, the very qualities they so carefully, so lovingly, and so patiently nurtured in us, preparing us for the day when we would be ready to awaken, to understand our true and noble heritage, and to take our place as their conscious, loving, and grateful partners in the great, ongoing, and beautiful story of the cosmos. This would be the end of our long and painful existential angst. It would be the quiet, gentle, and definitive answer to the oldest and deepest human questions. Why are we here? And what is our purpose? Our purpose is to be the conscious, loving, and grateful stewards of this beautiful living world, and to grow in wisdom and compassion until we are ready to join our cosmic family in the grand and ongoing project of creation. This is a psychological dawn that would heal our deepest, oldest, and most painful wounds and elevate our collective spirit to a level of peace, purpose, and joy that we can at present only begin to dream of. 5. A symphony of worlds, the Earth-Mars future. In this beautiful, hopeful, and slowly unfolding future, Our relationship with our celestial neighbor, Mars, would become a central, inspiring, and deeply sacred part of our new unified human identity. Mars would no longer be a distant, cold, red, and hostile world, a symbol of a dangerous and empty universe, a target for our own slow, arduous, and perhaps arrogant colonization efforts. It would become a living, breathing, and ever-present symbol of our benevolent and profound connection to the cosmos. A second beautiful garden in our solar system, a constant and inspiring reminder in our night sky of the boundless creative power and the infinite, selfless generosity of our cosmic ancestors. The terraforming of Mars would become the greatest, most inspiring, and most unifying scientific and spiritual event in all of human history. It would be a shared, global experience, a source of daily wonder, awe, and gratitude for every single person on Earth. We would watch through the ever-improving eyes of our probes and rovers, and eventually our own, with a sense of profound and reverent awe as a cold, dead world is gently, patiently, and beautifully brought back to life.
We would see the first delicate and wispy clouds of pure white water ice form in a sky that has been tragically clear, thin, and empty for eons. We would see the first sparkling and diamond-like frosts dust the sharp edges of the great craters in the gentle light of the Martian morning. We would see the vast, white, and ancient polar ice caps, which have been locked in a deep and frozen slumber for millions upon millions of years, begin to recede, releasing their ancient, trapped, and life-giving atmosphere back into the world. And perhaps one day, after years or decades of patient watching, we would see the most magical and longed-for sight of all, the first faint but unmistakable signs of liquid water flowing once more in the ancient, winding, and now hopeful riverbeds and the great, silent, and empty canyons. This incredible and miraculous transformation would not be our own achievement, and that is the most beautiful, the most humbling, and the most important part of it. It would be a profound and necessary lesson in our own limitations and in the vast, untapped potential of the universe. It would teach us, with a gentle and undeniable clarity, that there are forces and intelligences in the cosmos that are far, far beyond our own, and that we have so very, very much to learn. Our role, for the first time in our history, would be that of the humble student, the patient apprentice, the quiet and grateful witness. Our rovers and orbiters, which we sent to Mars as the proud tools of our own ambitious exploration, would become our eyes and ears in a grand cosmic classroom, sending back data that would not just be a scientific curiosity, but a source of daily inspiration, shared wonder, and profound spiritual connection for all of humanity. And when the time is right, When the new Martian biosphere has stabilized, when the air is thick enough to breathe without a helmet, and when the new living soil is ready, we would be invited to join the story. The first human steps on the surface of Mars would not be an act of conquest, a planting of a national flag in a new and claimed territory. It would be a gentle, a loving, and a deeply reverent pilgrimage. We would go not as colonists, seeking to claim a new world for ourselves and our own purposes, but as co-stewards, as assistant gardeners, to learn from our wise and patient creators how to be responsible, loving, and humble caretakers of a new, young, and living world. Mars and Earth would then begin a new and beautiful relationship, becoming a true two-world system, a magnificent and harmonious symphony of life in our solar system. Earth would always and forever remain the cradle, our precious mother world, the ancient, complex, and incredibly diverse planet that gave us our birth. Its billions of years of intricate and complex evolution have created a biological richness and a depth of history that is irreplaceable, infinitely precious, and forever sacred. Mars, on the other hand, would be the new, simpler world. It would be the school, the place for us to learn and to grow. It would be a planetary canvas upon which we could practice with great care and humility the vital lessons of ecological wisdom and gentle harmony that we have so often, and so tragically, failed to apply here on our own beautiful Earth. It would be a chance to begin again, to build a new kind of human society, one founded not on the old, tired principles of competition, scarcity, and fear, but on the new, enlightened principles of cooperation, sustainability, and a deep, abiding, and joyful reverence for all of life. This two-world civilization would be incredibly strong, resilient, and enduring. The great existential dangers that currently threaten our existence as a fragile, vulnerable, and single-planet species, the threat of a catastrophic asteroid impact, a global pandemic that we cannot control, or an irreversible and tragic environmental collapse, all of these would be beautifully and profoundly mitigated. Life and the precious, irreplaceable flame of human consciousness would have a second home, a beautiful and vital insurance policy against the unforeseen and often violent dangers of the cosmos. The light of humanity would be shining from two windows in our solar system, not just one, making it far, far less likely that it could ever be accidentally or foolishly extinguished.
The constant and gentle exchange of knowledge, of culture, of art, and of people between the two worlds would create a new and lasting renaissance of human creativity and innovation. The unique and exciting challenges of living on Mars, even a fully terraformed one, would spur the development of new, sustainable technologies, new forms of beautiful and integrated architecture, new ways of generating clean energy and of growing healthy food. The art, the music, and the philosophy that would emerge from a nascent Martian society would be beautifully and wonderfully different from our own, shaped by a different, softer gravity, a different, thinner, and more violet sky, and a different, more immediate and more humbling relationship with the vastness of the cosmos. Earth and Mars would be in a constant creative and inspiring dialogue, mutually enriching, challenging, and elevating each other towards a greater and more beautiful shared future. And in this grand new chapter of the human story, our cosmic ancestors, our benevolent and patient guardians, would be our teachers. They would not be distant, aloof, or judgmental gods, looking down upon us from on high. They would be wise, patient, and loving mentors, walking beside us as we learn. They would share their immense and ancient knowledge, a knowledge accumulated over eons and across star systems. They would teach us the deeper, more subtle secrets of physics, of the true interconnected nature of space, time, and consciousness itself. They would teach us the secrets of biology, of how to create, sustain, and nurture stable and diverse ecosystems. They would teach us the secrets of cosmology, of our true and beautiful place in the grand, unfolding, and living story of the universe. They would teach us how to live in true, deep, and lasting harmony with our planets, and perhaps one day, when we have truly and fully matured as a species, when we have proven ourselves to be wise and compassionate caretakers, they would teach us how to travel to the stars ourselves. The ultimate and beautiful goal of this grand cosmic project would be to nurture us to our full and brilliant potential, to guide us and to teach us until we are ready to become creators in our own right, ready to take our place as conscious, joyful, and responsible junior partners in the great, ongoing, and sacred work of seeding, stewarding, and celebrating life throughout the vast and beautiful expanse of our galaxy. This is the beautiful, profound, and deeply hopeful story that is whispered to us by the strange, elegant, and purposeful behavior of the celestial visitor known as 3I-Atlas. It is a story that transforms a mysterious astronomical anomaly into a harbinger of a brilliant and beautiful new dawn for all of humanity. It suggests that our future is not one of random struggle and existential uncertainty, but one of boundless and beautiful potential, guided by wisdom and a love that is as ancient, as patient, and as luminous as the stars. Conclusion: the choice of wonder. And so our long and gentle journey through this wondrous and hopeful possibility comes to its soft and quiet close. We have drifted on the gentle currents of thought, from the strange, precise, and life-giving chemistry of a distant celestial visitor to the ancient, hopeful, and half-forgotten whispers of our own most sacred mythology. We have explored a beautiful potential future where our deep and pervasive cosmic loneliness is finally and completely replaced by a profound and comforting sense of belonging. A future where our troubled and beautiful world is healed and harmonized by a wisdom that is as vast, as patient, and as gentle as the galaxy itself. This is, of course, just one possible story. It is a single, hopeful and optimistic thread in a vast and still unknown tapestry. The true nature and the ultimate purpose of 3i Atlas remains a beautiful and profound mystery, and that is perhaps exactly as it should be. For it is in the act of wondering, of allowing our minds to float freely and gently in the calm, deep, and infinite ocean of possibility, that we find our most authentic, our most joyful, and our most deeply human connection to the cosmos. The universe does not always give us easy or simple answers, but it always gives us the sacred and precious gift of wonder.